Hello, everyone, and welcome to the third most engaging podcast that you've ever listened to. I am Mecha, and I'm going to be talking about Fire Emblem Engage, and I've finally finished the game. And to join me on this post-Engage beating, spoiler-free / spoiler-filled episode is SpeedyHawk. Speedy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Mecha. Thanks for having me on to talk about Engage, the third best co-host in the series so far, yeah?
So far. The rankings are not done yet, but yes, probably. At least you can have that one. You can have that one for sure.
I'm pretty confident.
It might improve too. So today we're going to talk about, well, first of all, just Speedy's impressions with Engage so far. We're going to talk about the story because now that we've finished, we both have a complete vision on the story. Like we can just talk about the whole thing rather than segments. And you know, sometimes when you encounter something within the story that you're not sure about, you're like, maybe they'll address it later. So now we have a complete view. We'll talk about maddening mode because I've been playing that a little bit, and I think Speedy has touched it as well. And then we also talk a little bit about Iron Man and how Engage is for an Iron Man, probably. And you know, we'll see in which orders these come up as we're going through, but expect like a solid 40 to 1 hour. What am I going to talk about? You guys can see the timestamps anyway. Anyway, Speedy, how has engagement for you?
I've been loving the game, honestly. I've said it multiple times that it's probably honeymoon phase, but like right away I could tell that I enjoy playing this game more than I did with Three Houses. So I mean that's a plus. I hate to like crap on Three Houses so much, but I think Engage is a step in the series that I appreciate more as a player. And I know the story we were going to talk about how I don't think the story's too great, but I think I appreciate what they did with the map design and the mechanics of Engage so far.
Mm-hmm. Did you have a feeling of honeymoon phase during Three Houses as well? Like, was that also there in your back of your mind? Like, am I just liking this, or is it just the honeymoon phase?
Well, for me personally, there was a honeymoon phase because I was excited. I was like, brand new game. I'm happy to meet all these new characters, but it faded pretty quickly for me. Probably around like
with Three Houses, right?
Yeah, I'm talking about Three Houses. Yeah, probably around right before the time skip. I was getting burned out just because the maps weren't keeping up with what I wanted. I guess there were no objectives on the maps really. The only objective I can really think of in Three Houses was escorting that green samurai NPC to blow up the building.
Oh yeah.
That was like the only thing that comes to mind, really. But I'm sure there was others.
Yeah, that is a pretty big thing in Three Houses that really hurt. I don't mind talking about Three Houses in comparison, by the way, because it's the most natural point of comparison for Engage, right? It's like the previous game.
Yeah, it was the last one that came out.
It's a really big game as well. It had a lot more attention on it than other Fire Emblem releases, including Engage, I think. So it makes sense for almost everything you're talking about in the context of Engage and its release period. It's comparing it to Three Houses. I think that's natural. I think early on, when this game just came out, there was a lot of reviews that were like, well, this game is okay, but there's no Three Houses. You know, that whole saga that we had. And that got a lot of crap, but it's fair to some points to compare to Three Houses for a lot of reasons. Just, you know, you can't base your whole opinion on just how it compares to Three Houses because there's only one other Fire Emblem game, and there's other factors to go into it as well. But,
yeah,
you know, I don't mind it as a point of comparison.
Yeah, it's just for me, you know, I've always been a Fire Emblem fan, but not like a super diehard one. Before I made a YouTube channel, I didn't play any of the ones that never came out in the West, you know? And then after I made a YouTube channel, it kind of pushed me to play all the games I could. I haven't played FE3 yet, though, and I never finished New Mystery. But I've touched most of them. So the reason I compare it to Three Houses is just because it's the most recent point where I can say, like, honeymoon phase. Like, Echoes I hated right away, so that doesn't count. But Three Houses, like, I could say...
We're calling it off. We're done.
Don't worry. On my second playthrough of Echoes, I appreciate it so much more.
It is.
Like, you have no idea how much more I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's understandable. Sometimes a game gets better the more you play it, and sometimes it's the reverse as well. I think...
Well, you see, what it is, I hate to talk about other games besides Engage, but it's all the Killer Bow. I didn't know the Killer Bow existed.
Oh, yeah.
Until my second playthrough, so...
Yeah, the forging system in Three Houses is absolutely terrible this way. Or Three Houses Echoes, right? Where you don't know how to get a color bow. Because you don't get one, you have to forge one. And the forge system
Exactly.
is like blind. He's like, okay, let me just give your coins and hope that it works out in some way.
I guess I could have save scummed, but I didn't think about it, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly the same. You don't feel like you should be safe scumming in a blacksmith of all places. Like, come on. No, absolutely. And I think for Three Houses, what might hurt my retrospective view of Three Houses a little bit is that the release period for that game, or the time that it was the newest game, it felt longer because I had to play all 3 routes for my channel basically, and I enjoyed doing that, but it's still playing 3 routes that are very, very similar, and it went on for so long that I think it's easy to get bored of Three Houses in retrospect. Plus I played it like a couple more times for other reasons, like other challenge playthroughs and stuff like that. So it's easy to look back on Three Houses like, it was kind of meh, but at the same time, it's not a completely fair comparison because of how the game was made. But then again, the reason we play it so many times is because they made it the way it is. So it's still their fault, basically, is what I'm saying.
I know New Game Plus is supposed to kind of remedy that, like, playthrough fatigue, I guess, so you don't have to do the monastery as much. But I like to play Fire Emblem games like with clean slates. I think it's more fun building your army up from the ground. So every time I never touched New Game Plus, and because of that, I've only beaten 2 routes. I've never beaten the other 2.
Yeah, that's fair. Are you also always looking for like the developer intended experience of playing a game?
Exactly.
So
I think that's the most fun way to play for me. So
yeah, I think that should always be the most fun way to play, because you're trying to play what they thought would be the most fun way for you to play, and that should be the most defaultish setting. So you're probably likely to just go for whatever is the most regular vanilla way to play it. And Fire Emblem, for like a couple entries now, has had a lot of ways that go away from that. Like the DLC in Engage, for example, it's like, well, I don't think I'm really supposed to have a Three Houses ring at this point in the game. It feels off when I play it like that.
It's that. I mean, I feel like this has started since Awakening, where they added like random weapon pickups and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's just like, oh my, you could get like broken weapons in Awakening if you get lucky enough.
Yeah, you get like a brave tome in chapter 1 or something like that.
I'm not sure about that, but it might be true.
Yeah, you can get the
I feel like the RNG kind of ruins that.
Yeah,
but it's more exciting, I guess.
Yeah, I think for Engage is just so silly that it's kind of easy to ignore there. But for a feature like Three Houses, New Game Plus, it becomes like, I don't know, you have to like hold yourself back from abusing it too much, or the game just becomes like a ROM stomp, right? Like you just wreck everything. Whereas
I've never done it, but you could tell me.
Yeah, it is like that. It is exactly like that. Like picking up something like, imagine picking like Dimitri's post-time skip Gambit, but you have it for like the mock battle early on, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, okay.
That is how it is. Whereas I think Engage, in a way, we should probably credit it for how good it is at making broken things just work within the map design. I think that we've praised this for all the podcasts so far, but I think that's really what stuck with me, is that the maps don't feel super trivial even if you use some of the broken tools. And eventually, with some big brainerness, you can, even on the hardest difficulty, trivialize some of the maps. With like things like the Micaiah emblem and just entrap staves and stuff like that. You can do it, but it's not like in Three Houses where, you know, you start at the bottom of the map and then like 5 squares up there is Cornelia, I think is her name, standing up there on like a slightly elevated platform. You just fly a wyvern to her turn 1, she's dead, and then the map is over. Like that.
I've turned one so many maps in Three Houses.
Yeah. You put some thought into it, and there's still, like you said, there's side objectives too that makes you want to go out of the way. Like in one of the maps, the boots is in one of the treasure rooms or something, so you don't really want to just bunga straight to the boss and kill the bosses, even though kill bosses like the main objective of Engage as well. So yeah, all those differences, they do really stand out. I don't think, like you said, it's honeymoon phase. It was honeymoon phase for Three Houses definitely, and it wore off, and this is still honeymoon phase. But I think this game might have a little bit more longevity, at least for the one playthrough you do, because obviously for Three Houses you have more playthroughs because you have more houses. But yeah, I don't know, I think some of it will definitely age well. Basically, some of the fun we're having will age a little bit better.
Yeah, I have like over 150 hours probably clocked into the game already, which is
Well,
I don't remember how much I have in Three Houses, but I think it's near that. So I think it's a testament to how much I'm enjoying the game. I've beaten it once, and then I'm running 2 separate playthroughs, one for my channel and then one just for fun on the side. So yeah, I'm having a real good time with it.
yeah, what have you been doing in Engage exactly, like difficulty-wise? I thought you were doing some Ironmans. What are you doing?
Yeah, so for my first playthrough, I decided to jump in maddening blind.
Oh.
Because with Three Houses, I felt like hard mode was a little too easy. Not to like sound like a tough cool guy here, but I feel like the game didn't spike in difficulty until like the very end, and I didn't feel challenged, I guess. So I was like, okay, let's try maddening, and it made me tear my hair out because I didn't know what I was doing. But finished the first playthrough. Second playthrough, I'm doing a maddening Iron Man on my channel, and then on the side, I'm doing an all Royals run on maddening, where I use like Alfred, Saline, Ivy Hortensia, Tamara Fogato, and Diamant and Alchrist. Like all I can.
That makes sense. And all this on maddening, so you haven't really touched hard then, right?
No, I haven't.
But
I'm sure it's challenging. I've heard a lot of people say it's still like challenging and well balanced. I think the only thing that's keeping me from trying hard mode is that the AI will target you if you have 0 hit.
Yeah.
Or if they have 0 hit. I think that kind of makes it easy to cheese. But you know, maybe I should try it out for myself.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why I started with hard, is like I can always do maddening later when I have a hang of the game, and that way I'll get more out of the game, like just in terms of straight up hours and content I can make out of it. Because if you've already beaten maddening, I don't know if there's much of a reason to go back down to hardest, except for like challenge playthroughs, but it sounds like even with the Royals run, that's going well enough on maddening, right?
It's going better than my first playthrough because I mean, I just know how to invest in my units better. And there's like tricks I know. You know things on the maps that are coming that you can prepare for. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the Royals suck, personally.
Yeah.
I don't think they're very good units, but it is going more smoothly than my first playthrough.
Yeah, I think the gap between hard and maddening is probably smaller than the gap between first playthrough and second playthrough, no matter what difficulty you played on, because getting used to the game makes such a massive difference. I started maddening mode myself for a little bit. This hasn't been uploaded on my channel anywhere at all. It's been something I've been doing on the side while waiting for my uploads to catch up to the finale, so that I can stream the finale after everyone has seen the previous episodes. And my experience with maddening mode is pretty much use what works on hard mode, or do something worse than that if you feel like it. Just try it. If it doesn't work, you have 10 rewinds to just make it work in some capacity. You can't really do that on an Iron Man playthrough, of course, or some other final playthroughs, but generally that's a pretty efficient way to play it. Like I used to be very, or I usually when I'm playing Fire Emblem, I'm very deliberate about, okay, I'm gonna plan my turn out and then I'm gonna play it out. But even in maddening on Engage, I'm just like, well, let me just make the moves that I think I want to make, get them out of the way, make it easier to visualize, and if it goes wrong in enemy phase, whatever, I'll just rewind back and try something slightly less boneheaded, and it will probably work out, and either the RNG will have mercy on me, or my plan will work out, because sometimes the AI is also just straight up dumb on maddening mode. They'll target in such an inefficient way that you just survive. That's been my experience, but I'm only at chapter 8, and I know there's like a difficulty spike, so maybe that changes like a little bit. For right now, I would definitely say, if you've beaten the game once, then maddening mode is definitely something worth trying. This is kind of matching your experience as well.
Yeah. I think maddening mode is challenging. Sorry, my voice cracked. I think maddening mode is challenging, but yeah, like once you understand the game, it's not like it's definitely not the hardest game in the series, I would say.
No.
It's challenging for an Iron Man because I think the AI, not the AI, the RN is like screwy sometimes. And me and my chat have a theory that the computer can read the RN, so it knows when it has like a crit coming, or it knows when it's gonna hit like the 20%.
I don't believe those theories. I don't believe those at all.
No, we're wearing our tinfoil hats, Mecha.
You can wear them all I want, but like this game has been cracked open. Like everyone's been able to read the code since day one. I don't believe there's anything like that here.
No, there has to be.
And all I hear is people saying, well, my aunt's uncle had made this one move one time and it changed the AI. And I'm like, No, probably not. There's probably something else that changed that made it happen that way. Because remember in Three Houses, you had these movement arrows as well, and they showed exactly what the AI wanted to do, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then enemies would move a couple ways, and then an enemy would do something different than what they said they would do on player phase, and they were like, "Oh, the arrow
the
lied."
circumstances they change, yeah.
But like, of course, the AI changes because the status of your unit has changed. So sometimes the AI will just do something different later on that turn, because one of your units got damaged, for example. So they're like, okay, I'm going to go for that unit now because they're damaged, or a spot got occupied, so they could no longer attack. And I think it might be something like that. But at the same time, maybe people have used Time Crystal to find out real isolated cases of the enemies actually changing what they do, and I just haven't seen it yet.
I personally don't believe the enemy like knowing things to change who they target, but it feels so crazy sometimes. Like FE6 and FE7 are both 2RN mecha, right? And you have a lot of experience with both games.
Mm-hmm.
Are you gonna tell me that you don't feel a difference between FE6 and FE7 with how the hit rates work?
This is a serious question.
It's a dead serious question.
Do
like,
you not watch my Pitfall videos? Come on, Speedy. Come on. Do I really have to go over this? The hit rates in FE6 are lower than the FE7 ones for both the player and the enemy. Yeah, in general, because so the RN is the same. Like I think, in fact, if you look at the game's code or the game's like RN, what's it called? Like the seeds, basically. Like it always starts at the same RN and it just goes through it, and it pulls from that, right? You know that about the Fire Emblem.
Yeah, of course.
I think they're the same for both FE6 and FE7, like the exact same numbers.
But, yeah, you could believe it, but a 70 in FE6 feels way worse than a 70 in FE7.
I think humans, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you are a human being, SpeedyHawk. I think
I'll use my anecdotal experience, okay?
Humans are just kind of bad at figuring out stuff like how the RNG works, and they'll blame something that's not really to blame. Like, for example, for FE6, I did research for that Pitfall video. I think a Steel Lance in FE6 has literally 15 less hit than it does in FE7. So you'll more often see lower hit rates in FE6 than in FE7. And so you'll probably see more misses happen in FE6 than in FE7. And, you know, you're not going to remember all the times you hit an 80, but you'll definitely remember the times that you miss an 80, right? It's confirmation bias. You know how that works, right?
Chain Attack definitely has done that.
Yeah, everyone blames Boucheron for being bad, but he just gets to attack a lot. So you just see him miss a lot.
Exactly. Like, I missed so many 80s. Oh, my God.
Yeah, you miss 1 in 10.
It's been happening more often.
Yeah, because he's gonna miss 1 in 10, and you'll remember the ones, but you don't remember as many of the other ones probably. Sometimes they don't even matter. Like, you also remember it when it matters. So you're like, oh, I got 1% crit when it really mattered. It's like, yeah, you'll remember that one, but you won't remember the 99 times it didn't happen. That's what I think is going on with the RNG.
That's fair, Mecha. I just think it's more fun to blame the system.
It is fun. Like, it's content. In fact, if you listen to me stream 24/7, you can probably hear me like blaming the RNG for something silly that I did, just because it's funny. Like, it's just a way to cope, right? It's better.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I cannot believe that just happened. This game is BS.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least Engage is so nice with the Time Crystal that you can afford to have these things happen to you, and it won't erase like an hour of your progress unless you made some errors along the way. Like, you're not gonna get 1% crit 20 times in the map unless you're using the same seed over and over, probably.
Yeah, definitely. And some of these maps are so long, it feels like, that I appreciate the Time Crystal being there in some aspect. I'm kind of like an anti
that's true, you are
guy, but there was even times on my personal playthrough that I was like, thank God the turn wheel's here, because I do not want to restart this map right now.
I think it's a great tool for content creation, especially because nobody wants to watch you play the same moves from the start of the chapter over and over again, right? They just want to watch you finish the chapter, and then it saves recording time at least. But I get I'm gonna call it a Puritan aspect because I can't think of a better word right now. But like, if you compare it to how Fire Emblem worked before the Time Crystal, there's a difference. It's undeniable, right? Like, it used to be taking a risk is almost unacceptable unless you're looking to make content that's like really risky, or you're just that kind of a person. But like, generally speaking, you don't risk someone dying to a 30% hit if you're playing Iron Man, or you don't want to reset like an hour in, then you just don't do that. And now, if you get away with it, and 70% of the time you will, because below 50% it's what you see is what you get. 30% is 30%. So 70% of the time you'll get away with it, and you'll just continue with your day, and it'll be fine. You have a good time, and generally Fire Emblem is more fun when you're having a good time and you're not dying. So in that way, I can't deny it improves the game experience, but it does lose the stakes a little bit. It does make it less about finding the absolute best move and more about finding a set of moves that will work enough of the time that you can use your time crystal to make it happen.
I mean, doing my Iron Man, we just got to we're on chapter 16 now. So we're like almost at the mid game. I don't know what I would consider mid game because there's a lot of paralogs too. But like just the way I've been playing without the turn wheel, it's a huge difference. I've been having a good time having to like calculate how to make everyone survive, but I'm definitely way more cautious just considering every worst case scenario possibility. Where with the time wheel, I was like, yeah, I got 10 chances. Like you could go out there. Like it's no biggie.
Yeah, it's probably faster to like someone out there and let them die to an enemy to figure out what their odds of survival are than it is to like calculate every little thing, which is probably intentional design. Whereas for an Iron Man, I mean, I've done a lot of Iron Mans myself. That's like you had like some 10-20 minute turns there to figure out exactly what's going to happen to you.
I'm not that intense, but I've had those long turns too.
Yeah, no, I watched a little bit of you playing. I think it was chapter 10 where like Hyacinth was coming at you. And you're like have to pull back and make some plays happen with the what's it called, the blocking staff, the ice ones.
Yeah, I definitely abused the ice pillars, the obstruct.
Yeah,
and
the Micaiah ring to make like a plus formed ice crystal for them to get through. That was definitely intense for sure. Would you say? I mean, how far along are you in the Iron Man?
Chapter 16.
Chapter 16, right? So I'm not sure exactly how good this game will be for an Iron Man, so would you be able to shed some light on that? Because I know you get a lot of characters that can replace old ones, but at the same time I feel like the cast is kind of small to the point where you're at a real risk of running out of units sometimes, or like good units.
Yeah.
So how does it balance out?
Just from my experience with my first playthrough, it feels like the game sprinkles units on you so often. Like you're getting like 2 retainers and a lord up until like maybe chapter 17, let's say.
Yeah.
And then, there's a couple more. I think there's only 4 other characters after 17. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So once I get to that point, I feel like it's going to be a thing where I don't have suitable replacements, and then everyone who's on the bench is going to be way too far behind at that point to catch up. Yeah. So I'm not sure how it's gonna be for an Iron Man. Like my whole thing with 3 houses Iron Manning was that the replacements are not viable.
They're not there. There's no replacements.
Yeah, exact. And it's like so hard to invest in the units to become ready to be on the front line. But with Engage, I'm afraid that after you hit that, let's say like 20, chapter 20 maybe, you're like not gonna have suitable replacements. But when I get there, I'll have a better understanding. I think the game is fun to Iron Man in general up to that point because you do have so many suitable replacements if people fall.
Yeah,
I think it'll be a good Iron Man game. I'm afraid of the skill balance. I've seen people absolutely tearing this game in half with dual assist like heroes.
Oh yeah,
just like an army of them and just destroying the game. I'm afraid there's gonna be a combo out there that's just gonna completely ruin the balance and make it too trivial.
But other than that, just put like heroes around every single enemy unit and then just kill them all in player phase.
And with dual assist, you don't even have to be next to them. You can just be like in the vicinity, and then you basically having like a 90% chance to one round them from how many 80s from how many like 10% health chips you're gonna do on them.
That's funny though. Yeah, I can see that work. I think. A game like this and a game like 3 Houses, there are always going to be ways to completely tear them apart. But at least when it comes to like dual assist heroes, with that skill and the Lucina skill, right, that you inherit, that's how you do it, right? Yeah. At least in that way, like you figured something out that's just a really good mechanic, and then if you want to reap the rewards, it's fine with me. And if you restrain yourself just a little bit to play the game normally, then you're pretty much good. Whereas in 3 Houses, like, I hate to keep harkening back to it, but they put the boss right in your face, and they're like, hey, you just want to finish the map? Like, maybe you'll have, like, a lot of time left over to go do your laundry, so just go finish the boss, right?
Even if it's not right in front of your face, they give you so many tools to get to the boss turn 1, and I don't think they had health bars like they do in Engage. I know the monsters have health bars, They just like borrowed that mechanic. But I
Yeah.
feel like that was their answer to stop the turn 1 boss clear, you know?
Yeah, that must
Or at least
have been.
try to.
Yeah, you can still make it happen in a lot of cases. I already know
Yeah.
there's like a run out there by Lapogne that has it's displayed turn count, so they can grind off screen to get like characters to like the near max level or whatever they want to be, get all the skills that they want, all the SP that they want. And so almost every boss is just still every map is still a turn 1 boss kill, but with 3 health bars, because one of them gets killed by like Astral Storm Panette, and then another one is just Alir being warped like 5 times up there and then killing them once on player face, once on enemy face. Like, and that's just 3 health bars in one. So it can be done, but it clearly takes some thought, and in the case of this playthrough, it took grinding to make it happen. So at least they made it a little less accessible. And I do wonder if someone really wanted to, they could plan an Iron Man in such a way that beyond chapters, whatever it is, like 13, 14, 15, 16, I don't know, they can just one round every boss with a certain level of certainty, and they just have a plan ready to just Iron Man the whole game, but you've planned it all ahead of time. That'd be so hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say anything on that until the tech evolves, but we're discovering new things every day, it feels like. Especially with like SP efficiency. There's like ways to grind. I didn't even realize you needed an emblem ring to get SP until someone pointed it out to me. And that was like day 5 maybe.
Yeah, I think it's like an emblem ring gives you double XP or SP, and then a bond
Regular
ring gives like normal amount, and then no ring is no XP or no SP. That's how it was, I think. It's
SP's so huge in this game for, I guess, making it easier. Not in a bad way. Like I think the skill system's fine. I like the way it works.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like so important for making or breaking your army is what I'm trying to say. So if you can optimize that, I feel like it's going to make the difficulty of the game go lower.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the thing with SP is, right, it builds very slowly, but some uses come with enough to where you can get by and get 1 or 2 broken skills and they'll be set for life. So as long as you pick the right ones, you're pretty much set.
Yeah.
You know, that works. It's just a shame you can't undo your decisions with SP. That's my only gripe with it. But other than that, it works pretty well.
I spent 2,000 SP on my first playthrough to get Dual Assist Plus, and I didn't realize you have to be a backup unit.
Same. I put it on. I put it on the spoiler unit, the last unit you get. I put it on them.
That's so funny. Yeah, that was definitely a facepalm.
That's just part of first playthroughs for me. That's just part of the charm. Is like you'll do dumb things like that, and you know not to do them again. And just point and laugh at it, look back at it, and like, okay, yeah, that was pretty dumb. I'm not gonna do that again on my maddening run or whatever new run you're doing. Right. Well, I think we've discussed the gameplay plenty, but one topic I really want to get into is the story of Fire Emblem Engage. Because I know you already said you're not a big fan, to put it mildly, and I also know that the internet as a whole is not likely to disagree with you there. Me, I'm still trying to make my mind up because I had a good time playing through the game, but I think Pavis put it best in the first podcast where he was like, yeah, Fire Emblem has definitely higher potential than this when it comes to storytelling, but it doesn't always have to be complex and deep. Sometimes it's just silly, and then you hear other like defenses for it, like, oh, it's just for fun. It's an anniversary game. It's not too deep. It's not taking itself seriously. So where do you stand on that? Because we can all agree it's silly, right? But I guess the question is, how bad is that?
I made actually Pavis hopped on my stream one time. We were finishing up TMS, and we did like a story tier list for all the games. And I made the tiers and basically said anything below this line offends me with how the story is, and Engage was below that line. So like, for me personally, I think gameplay is more important to me than a story.
For sure.
Like, I love gameplay and characters. I think that's what draws me to Fire Emblem so much. I just really appreciate those aspects, and I'm gonna sound pretentious here, but I've never thought the stories were the main selling point or the strongest point of any of the games in the series. Maybe Fire Emblem 4, but that's just because I'm a hater.
That is the mildest way I've ever heard someone put that. I've definitely seen less subtle ways. It's like 5,000 people out there in the Fire Emblem subreddit going, Fire Emblem stories were never good. I'm so edgy, Lamau. Like, okay, that's a little bit too far. But
I don't want to be that edgy guy.
Yeah.
But that's personally how I feel. So,
yeah,
like,
fair.
obviously I love Engage. I don't care if the story is quote unquote bad. Or quote bad unquote, however you do that. But, like, there's some points... This is where we're going to get into spoiler territory. I don't know if you want me to pinpoint the points where I have problems with the writing.
Sure. I had a couple in my talking points as well, as you can see, but maybe you have different ones. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just feel like the story is fine for me up until a certain point where, okay, I'm just going to flat out say it. You're okay with that, right? Let's just...
Yeah, we're going into spoiler territory here, basically.
Spoiler warning,
there
guys,
are spoilers
if you care.
now.
I think what did it for me was like when Alear dies, that's when they just started doing this thing where they pull a problem out of thin air and then they also pull the solution out of thin air like within a minute.
Yes.
So like Alear dies and then Alear's like, wait, Vale, you can resurrect me as a corrupted and I'll be back. And it's like, okay, that's fine. And then, you know, she dies again or whatever. And
she is Alear in this context, right? Because you had female Alear, just making this clear.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'll say they. And then they die again. And then there's, you know, the whole thing where Zephia's like... Zephia's like, oh, the last crystal's underwater. You'll never find it. Oh, but I used the last remaining of my life force to make this crystal that'll help you... I made this trinket that'll help you find the crystal. And it's like the most contrived thing. And then, like, they try to make all the villains sympathetic for no reason at the very last second. Marnie's probably my favorite Black Hound, but they gave her a backstory and, like, a reason for you to feel bad for her within 5 minutes. Like, the whole thing happens so fast. There's no pacing.
I think she even has a line like, oh, I guess you don't have my backstory yet, huh? Well, here it goes.
Yeah. It's like, it's comedic how bad it is. And then, same with Sombra. Even Sombron, they're like... I was just looking for my best friend. Oh, and my thoughts are not well put together here, but I feel like there's so many little things in the story that are so poorly executed where it makes me think it's worse than Fate sometimes. Fate's is bad because there's no logic, right?
Well, among other things, but yes, sure.
You don't need logic to make a good story, right? But there's some things that the characters do where it's like so insane that you would think no person in that circumstance would make the choices that Corrin does, right? But like Three Houses writing not Three Houses, sorry, Engage's writing just makes it feel really poorly thought out.
Yeah, I can definitely vibe with the thought that, okay, yeah, they pull a problem out of thin air and then suddenly there's a solution and it's almost always right away. So you start to wonder to yourself, could this have been written in a way that's slightly more appealing? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
I'm not super good at media analysis to do like a critical analysis. So what I like to do is I just like to hear other people's takes and then I'll slowly form my own opinion on it, basically, because I'm not a great authority to tell what's good or bad fiction. I usually rely on other people for this kind of stuff. So whatever I say is just my personal feelings on the matter, and sometimes other people's personal feelings on the matter. Let me get that out of the way. With Engage, I mean, my main way of gauging how much I like it is just, am I entertained, or is this in some way saying something, like conveying some kind of interesting message that I think is interesting? And Engage is kind of, it has some things that I can read into it, but it's never really deep enough to where that point of a message really gets across to me. Like, it's like power of friendship, I guess, power of family. Everyone has a backstory that's sympathetic or something. I don't know.
Everyone deserves sympathy.
Everyone deserves some sympathy,
and
then you just stab him with a sword.
Ike.
Yeah. And then sort of like in terms of like how entertaining or how interesting the story is, what I feel with Engage is what I've been feeling with it from the start, is it just feels like they just took all the elements of a Fire Emblem story and just copy pasted that. Like, they took a blueprint for a Fire Emblem story and that's it. They didn't really change a whole lot. They just told the same story again.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be a big problem for an anniversary game. Like, if this was the only issue with it and there wasn't all the other stuff that you just mentioned, that's where I'd leave it. I'd be like, yeah, that's disappointing, but it is what it is. It's fine. I would have liked better, but it's fine.
Yeah.
But the problem is that I've already played like 2 other games that are almost exactly like that, which is Fire Emblem Warriors and Fire Emblem Awakening. Both of those feel like the exact same thing in some aspects. Like it's just, you know, noble saves country, corrupted king, dragon at the end, boom, bada bing, next game.
It's not just those 2 games. There's tons of games in the series that are like that. Like
yeah,
they have slight differences, but most of them in general, I feel like the only one that's super different is Three Houses.
well, okay, so
I mean, Fates tried to be morally gray, but it didn't do a very good job. But Three Houses, I think, was definitely the most thought-provoking story.
you know, the thing that gets me here is that you can summarize a lot of Fire Emblem stories like that, but this is just the skeleton that I'm describing, and I feel like this game has the least meat around those skeletons when it comes to that. It's just that. Like, this is the whole story. Whereas with the other games, I feel like there's a bit more to that. And it's possible that I am just secretly a Kaga-praising madman who wants to find excuses to dislike a game or whatever. But I think it's more likely that this game does have a bit less to it in that sense. And
and I'm fine with that. But go on.
Yeah. So, and then, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like a very good writing. And sometimes there's even times where I'm not exactly entertained, but I'm just kind of like rolling my eyes, and you know, mine's just kind of roaming elsewhere because like
a bunch.
Like there's like the Lumera death scene that we all know at the start of the game where she dies for like 5 minutes straight, and we've only seen her for 5 minutes. She spends longer dying than she spends bonding with Aleer, basically.
Honestly, true, probably.
And then she dies again later on too when you kill her again. That's the other big problem I think I have with the story of Engage, is that there's only it feels like a very small world and a very small group of characters, because we see the 4 hounds like 5,000 times, so that makes the world feel very small. And then Sombron has barely any presence at all until the very, very end. Like, you see him in chapter 10, and then he kind of just goofs off for the rest of the game. So he doesn't do anything. And so all the conflicts are just between Aleer and the band and the 4 hounds. And that's all they do. They travel across the whole world meeting new funny friends, but nothing... It feels like it's very empty. There's nothing else beyond that in this world. You don't really meet anyone else, really. You don't even, there's not even that many NPCs in this game. You meet like the queen of the various nations, and that's kind of it. They don't do anything beyond a couple chapters where you see them. So it feels like a very small world as well. I guess that's less story and more world building, but that is another thing that kind of detracts from the experience, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Like, as a plot, I'm fine with the plot points. It's all execution here with how they did it. They completely botched the pacing of any storytelling whatsoever. That it's eye roll worthy how they present some of the things. You know, like even at the end, Martha's like, "By the way, Aleer, after this battle, like the portal's gonna close and we're not gonna see each other anymore." I'm like, "What portal are you talking about?" Like, maybe I missed it, but it's just like. They're trying to tug at your heartstrings, but they're doing it in the worst way possible.
A heartstring tug has to be built. It needs a little bit of foreshadowing, a little bit of build up sometimes.
You need to pace it properly. That's all. But and I agree with you with the world building aspect. The only parents that really like I didn't even remember Fiorne had a queen. I forgot. She's only in like one cutscene.
Yeah.
But Morian left an impression that what's freaking Brodia's king. He left an impression.
For sure.
I think that the Brodia arc is probably the best written part in the game for me. I thought the boss combos with like Diamant and Alchrist against Hyacinth, like that was good. I felt like emotions when it was happening. But then, yeah, the rest of it's like not so great.
Yeah, I think that the big key to Morion and what makes him more interesting than the rest is probably the fact that he just has more screen time and more presence. He's on screen for at least 1, 2, 3 chapters maybe. It's like his own cutscene where he battles Hyacinth, and you see him as a spoiler, I guess, at this point, corrupted as an enemy in chapter 10. So he's also integrated in the gameplay a little bit, which helps a lot.
Exactly.
And
he's the only one. Him and Hyacinth are the only ones that are actually on the maps, I guess. I'm kind of disappointed with the queens.
Yeah, exactly. Like if they just put them on the map, as I mean, we know what this game is like at this point. They'd probably be NPCs you have to protect at this point, but they could be badass warriors, like the Queen of Solm. If we saw her on the battlefield kicking butt, that would have been really cool too.
Yeah,
stuff like that would really change things.
It would have been it would have helped the world building a lot, I think. if they involve more of those characters.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the only real side characters except for the blacksmiths that join you in the Somnial, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how many other side characters are there?
I don't like those. I hate the blacksmith. They don't even travel with me to the battle preps. Like, come on.
Yeah.
What do I pay you for?
They just hang out at the mansion all day.
I want to cling on real quick before I forget to the Queen of Firene. I think her name is spelled Eve, but I think there's some accents in there that I'm forgetting to pronounce properly. But you know who I'm talking about, the blonde lady,
Yes.
right?
I remember her.
I do want to highlight that there was like 1 or 2 lines or so that she said that I actually do really like. So I do agree overall with like the critique that like this game has pacing issues, writing issues, like it tugs at your heartstrings in the wrong ways. But sometimes in this game it drops like 1 or 2 lines that I'm like, well, that's pretty quotable. That's pretty good. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's like missed potential is the word I'm looking for here.
Exactly. I think it's fun. Like the stuff is there. They just did it wrong.
A little bit.
But sorry to interrupt you. Go on.
No, it's fine. It's fine. I think I'm trying to remember the line. It was something about Lumera and her death. It was something like, I wish I could comfort you for your mom's death because my kids almost went through the same thing, or something like that. They created a parallel between herself and Lumera that I thought, just the way it was written was pretty charming. And there's a couple more lines like that in this game that I think shows that they could have done a bit more with this, and if they given it more attention or higher priority in our list, or an extra draft or something like that, it could have been a lot better than what it ended up being. It's just, this game seems to be 99% cheese and self-referential and jokey, and I think if this was a full-on comedic effort to write a Fire Emblem story, like that was just 99% supposed to be not taken seriously at all, I think I would have appreciated it in a different way. I don't know if I would say more, but if it was all comedy, then I think at least we could measure how well it achieved that. But as it is, it feels like sometimes it's just comedic, like when they go, it's engaging time and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no way this was intended to be a serious story. But then it's in the same story as those heartbreaking lines.
I think comedic's the wrong word. But it's like, it's ironically funny, yeah.
Yeah.
That's like, okay.
Because like the last couple chapters especially, the writing is just so over the top, like tropey and funny that it's like, I've heard people call it peak fiction because they think it's ironically funny. Like they enjoy it kind of ironically. Like the moment that for the 3rd time in his story, Sombron takes away the emblems, and you already know he's not gonna do that. Like they're gonna be back in 5 seconds. I was streaming the finale, and my whole Twitch and my whole chat was like, "Oh, it's toy commercial time."
That's so
for one last time, he calls out all their names. He's like, "Yeah, heal us, Emblem of Dawn," and stuff like that. Like, yeah, we've been through. You're now recycling the same plot point for the 3rd time. I think I get it now. Like, I'm keeping my emblem rings. It's not much of a surprise there if that was the intention.
Right.
But again, I am not a superb media critic. So go ahead.
Even as consumers, I think it's fair for us to have opinions. You know.
Yeah, sure.
Like, even if you disagree with us, we're allowed to voice our gripes with it.
Like, I hope someone at some point writes a compelling Reddit post or something like that on why the story is good actually, and I can take a look at it and consider it, because I try to be as open-minded when it comes to this as possible. This is just me, rationalizing is probably not the word I'm looking for, but I'm gonna use it anyway until I come up with a better one. But this is just me giving off my impressions of the story and then trying to go back and figure out why I went away with the impressions that I had of it. Because I had a good time with it, but I felt like it could be better, and sometimes missed potential feels worse than just if it was just like an all silly story, period.
That's why it's insulting to me. Missed potential.
Yeah, and I feel like we've been here before in the Fire Emblem fandom where I think we've been saying that since Fates or Awakening or so.
Nah, listen, honeymoon phase, whatever. I think they're going in the right direction for me. That's all. Like, I'd be fine if all the stories were this bad, but the gameplay loop was similar to this.
Yeah, no, if we have to sacrifice the story for the gameplay, which I don't think we should, but yeah, if you put a gun to my head and it's like, all right, you have to nuke one of these 2 aspects of the game, then sure, I'll take the gameplay any day. I don't believe we have to, because I mean, I think the whole point of Fire Emblem, or one of the great draws of Fire Emblem, is integrating the 2 to create something super compelling instead of having one completely divorced from the other, basically, I think.
Agreed.
There's one quick aspect I want to highlight about the story that I want to get in there, and that's the fact that I feel like this whole world, the whole story of Fire Emblem Engage, is written around worshipping Alear as much as humanly possible, which I think is still one of the biggest missteps for Fire Emblem in general. Because
Yeah.
I personally don't crave to be worshipped like a god, and I find nothing less relatable than being a god that can do no wrong.
It's a huge ego boost.
It's
No, I'm kidding.
Here's the thing, right? It's not even that for me, but go on.
No, I was just gonna agree with you. I don't see a problem with moving away from self-insert, like, main characters, where you name them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially
I
especially the naming part where
yeah.
it's like, just at this point, just give me an option to just call myself Alear and then have that be the voice line. And if I change it, leave it out like they did.
That would have been so nice. There's so many times where they call me the Divine Dragon. I'm just like, please, just say my name.
It's just Professor
I'm
over
Alear.
again. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, again, for a celebration game, this could be fine because, you know, they do that always. But, like, unironically, if they just named the main character Alear, left it at that, and then Alear does some stuff in the gameplay that's smart, or I make a gameplay decision that's pretty smart, and the characters praise me for that occasionally, that's a bigger ego boost to me than if they praise them always unconditionally, because then it just falls flat to me. That's what it feels like right now for me.
I mean, they set up Alear to be a deity, you know? Like, oh, you're the Divine Dragon, the one I've worshipped for my whole life. And then, Alear's just another dude or dudette, you know? He's like, oh, I just woke up. I'm just like you guys. So it just feels like unnecessary praise, I guess.
Yeah, I was hoping they would lean into that bit a little bit more, right? Where they like revert that. They're just like, oh,
yeah, exactly. If they pulled back, like, oh, maybe you're not like the godlike person I thought you were. And you know, they kind of do that. You're like, oh, you're more human than I thought you would be. They do it a little bit, but they're still, pardon my French, but they're still trying to suck off Alear like at every chance they get.
Yeah.
So.
To be fair, I do actually agree that Alear themselves, for me, I might call him a he because mine was a he, but I'll
yeah, no problem.
Alear themselves is actually not that badly written. I mean, everything is written around him, so it's hard to call him good universally. But I enjoyed his response to the way the world acts a lot of the time. He feels like a very human character for all of this game's faults. Like, I don't hate Alear as a character. I just hate the way everything else was written around him. You know what I mean?
I liked Alear at the beginning. Like, the first cutscene, it's like, Divine One, command us, what do we do? And he's like, run!
Yeah, exactly.
I thought
Everyone
that was
loves
great.
that scene.
Yeah. But as time went on, I mean, I played with female Alear, so just the way the voice actress delivered a lot of her lines, it sounded like she was about to cry in like every cutscene, even when it wasn't necessary. So eventually, I got kind of tired of Alear. Like, I kind of blame. I think the voice actress did an amazing job in some of the scenes. I cried during Lumaire's death just because of the performance of Alear. Like, seriously, like I shed a tear. But Alear eventually just became like on the verge of crying. Like, for me, at least, that was my impression. Where it came to the point where it's like, okay, I don't really like Alear as much anymore. But
that probably harkens back to the game having to do a lot of dramatic things to try and tug at your heartstrings, right? So almost everything that happens has to be super dire and impactful. So it's like, oh, she died, and she came back, and she died, and she came back, and she has to, like, I don't know, say goodbye to this character or that character, stuff like that. So that might just be what Alear is forced to do by the circumstances more than what Alear is actually like.
I mean, you still get to see Alear's actions in those circumstances. The circumstances are what's bringing Alear down. Yeah. But Alear is still, like, reacting in those scenarios where it makes me not like him/her as much.
It might also be another reason that Alear might not age super well within the story itself, is that I think at first, and this is a presentation issue, I think, at first, you were like super impressed by how much better this game looks than Three Houses, even within cutscenes, right? Because everything is more bright, and you no longer have those Marketplace Apple JPEGs everywhere, that or like the stretched monastery backgrounds that make it look terrible. Like, everything looks pretty good, and you're starting to think, well, maybe they moved away from that horrible Warriors engine or whatever it was that they were using to present these cutscenes. But I think around chapter 10 or chapter 11 or so, you realize they're actually still using the same method. They're just it's just flashy and new, so you're not as used to how it is in this game. But I think Bopper pointed this out last time. There's like the cathedral scene where Sombron is like swallowing Hyacinth, and they cut away exactly as he's doing it, so they didn't have to animate it probably. And
no, I thought that was good. I disagree.
It was a great scene until like they cut away and everyone's just like having their little reaction shots. And there's like a lot more. And then later on, you start to notice more scenes where people are just giving each other items, and it's just like the JPEG pops up again, and just holding their hands out.
Tell, don't show.
A lot of tell, don't show. And Alir's in every single scene, so just by the number of times it's going to happen, he's going to suffer from that the most. So that might also be a reason why subconsciously my liking, and maybe yours as well, of Alir, kind of went down over the course of it all. It might be another thing, the presentation, I think. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, no, I think it makes perfect sense. I just, I mean, okay, the cutscene where, just to harken back to what Bopper said, where Hyacinth gets eaten, I thought the cutaway was, like, the fade to black. I think it faded to black, if I remember. Like, right when he bites. Like, I'm fine with that. But the problem was how the characters were reacting to what was going on after the fact, you know? They're just standing around like, oh my god, that was pretty metal, dude.
Alvar's like, whoa, that's impressive. Glad you brought me off the bench for this.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I agree for the most part. Alir's in the most scenes, so like they have the most chances to F it up, basically. Their reputation.
Yeah, if something goes wrong, he's right there to you know, make you remember that it was them who was involved with it.
Right.
He's on the scene of the crime, even though he didn't commit it. It's all his fault.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yeah, I think I should say this before I forget. You praised Alir's voice performance. The male one is pretty good, honestly. I think when I listened to comparisons early on between female and male, I thought the female one sounded even better. I wouldn't say the male one is bad though, and I think over the course of the game he actually gets a little better even at reacting to things. He's pretty well acted. He's not to the point where I start to really react emotionally to it, but pretty good nonetheless. Like,
yeah, I think I'm gonna say the voice acting all around is pretty good. I don't think it's as good as Three Houses, but I didn't have any performances that I was like, ugh, you know. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, I think Three Houses definitely did a better one, but it might just be that, not that this game is bad, but that Three Houses was just really good all around. That might have been a problem. Like, these had big shoes to fill.
For sure.
I could definitely tell the difference, but I have a really hard time to criticize the voice acting in this game. That's for sure. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not like in the industry, but it feels like they recruited a bunch of like lesser known talent. I guess like I look on the behind the voice actor pages for a lot of these characters, and they like this is like one of their first big roles for a lot of them. But I think they all did a great job. I think maybe the emblem rings needing these like higher end name voice actors kind of cut the budget a little bit. You know, like they for all of them they got to get like Yuri Lowenthal and like who they had to get like the Three Houses. What's her name?
Edelgard and stuff.
Tara
like
Platt.
Yeah.
I feel like Greg Chun. These names are like more household, I guess. I feel like that kind of cut the budget that they had to get the emblem rings voices.
It's funny you mention that because earlier I was actually looking it up because Micaiah sounded so different from me than what I was used to. But apparently she has a different voice actress in Radiant Dawn compared to what she is in Heroes.
Oh, they're not going to get any of the Radiant Dawn people.
No. The funny thing is, this is just a fun trivia fact. Micaiah in Heroes and stuff is Veronica Taylor, right? The same person who does like Ash from Pokemon, and then Manuela from Three Houses. And then,
they didn't get Veronica Taylor.
Yeah, I think they did get Veronica Taylor. So like that's probably pretty expensive for them, probably.
Oh yeah, totally.
But the funny thing is, the original voice actress for Radiant Dawn, Micaiah, I forgot her name. I hope I still have the page open, but I don't think I do. But it's the same voice actress from at least two other characters. Can you guess which ones? Like Radiant Dawn, Micaiah. She's two other characters. Radiant Dawn has like 4 voice actors total. It's pretty crazy for like English.
I have no idea. Who could it be?
One of them is Mia, and the other.
Oh, you're saying in Radiant Dawn?
Yeah, Radiant Dawn.
Okay, yeah. I know it's like Mia and Mist.
Yeah.
Or Rolf.
Yeah,
Rolf too,
all those,
right?
all of those,
Yeah.
all of those.
I thought you meant they brought her back to Engage to do 2 roles.
I I wish, because I'm used to that voice personally, because Mikai's in a couple cutscenes.
What if I hit her?
Yeah, not that voice in particular, because that's, you know, a different character, but yeah.
Yeah, no, Micaiah was fine, I guess, with her voice acting in Radiant Dawn.
Yeah, everyone else was worse off.
Yeah, but that is funny that I had no idea she voiced all those characters. I was like, oh.
The thing, I really prefer her Radiant Dawn voice over like Veronica Taylor's performance of Micaiah, because Micaiah is so high pitched in Engage. It's like
they definitely waifu-ified her.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to tell with Radiant Dawn because the only times you get to hear the voices are in those like rare cutscenes where she has a speaking role.
Yeah, like the Yunaka cutscene.
Hush, Yune.
Yeah.
Or no, in Engage
yeah,
you get to hear her fine.
Yeah.
But one of my complaints, not complaints, but like it feels like that Micaiah is completely different than she is in Radiant Dawn, for me at least.
You mean character-wise
like
as well?
Yeah. I mean, she has her moments in Radiant Dawn where she's like a little bright and cheery. But like even when you polish her ring, she's just like, thank you ever so much. It's like it doesn't feel like Micaiah to me.
Yeah. To be fair, the emblems have a really hard time shining in this game, because they get almost no lines in the first place. But then within each of their own games, they all have the same role, which is, you know, be the main character and just be kind of, you know, a nice prince/princess out to save their kingdom and recruit people and just be a good guy. .jpg. So they're pretty generic, but they work because they get to bounce around with other characters and form some sort of contrast or something. They stand out, even though within themselves they're maybe not that spectacular. But then you put them all, like, 12 of them, and Engage in the same-ish role, and they all have like one speaking line every now and then. It's going to be hard for them to stand out. Like, how different can you make Roy, Marth, Sigurd, Celica, and all of them sound really when they fulfill very similar roles within the game? I'm not saying these characters are all exactly the same. They have their subtle differences, but they do not come out in Engage at all, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, the ones that blend together the most for me are Roy and Leaf. Like if my eyes were closed, I probably couldn't tell who's talking, like Roy or Leaf, because they're both just like oblivious, like friendly guy that's just trying to do the right thing. But the ones that stand out, like Ike and I don't know if you played with Soren.
I've seen
like,
all his Bond convos because they're hilarious.
Yeah, like Ike and Soren are so great. Oh my god, I love it. I've said this multiple times, but I love it when even if you polish Ike's ring, he's just like, "What are you?" Never mind. Like, he has so much personality. It's great.
Yeah, they had to use the lords for this, right? Because I mean, you can't not use the main character for this kind of thing. So they were really. Once they stuck with this concept, it was really hard to find a way out that makes these characters like stand out, but also be true to their originals. Because you don't want to invent a bunch of fan fiction to make them different. Probably, like you have Ike, and then you have very little else that really looks different and feels different. Like they could have used Ephraim, I guess, or Hector, but they decided not to.
Yeah, Ephraim would have felt different. Erica was kind of samey, you know. But I feel like they definitely tried to split the ratio 6-6 for like female male.
Yeah.
I wish Ephraim had more, like, any voice lines.
He has no lines, right? He's just kind of there boosting the attack power.
He grunts. He grunts.
Yeah, Ephraim was there. My brother is here. Trust me.
Trust me. And Sigurd has, you know, he knows the pain of leaving a child behind. That's his thing.
That's really where the strength of the emblems shines through, or can shine through if you let them, is giving them parallels to what happened to them in their own game. And in that sense, I think we talked about this in the first one as well. Whenever they are able to make like some kind of gameplay connection between what is happening and what they're talking about and what's happening in the original game, that's when it feels like the references are the strongest. Like stuff like Micaiah being first being engaged or synced with Yunaka, who's a thief, stuff like that. That is what stands out to me as a longtime Fire Emblem fan. That is the kind of, I guess I'll call it, fan service that I enjoy about them.
That you like, yeah. I agree. I think that's awesome. I feel like it doesn't feel like it's related to your point, but you just made me think of something. When it comes to map design in this game, I feel like they borrow aspects from like every game in the series. So like the Yunaka chapter where you first get her, that it does feel like a Radiant Dawn map to me. I could totally see it being on Radiant Dawn. I don't know about you.
I've never thought about it like that. I mean, obviously it's easy to think of the paralogs, right? But you're going for the main maps
paralogs
here.
Are obviously very easy to make that comparison.
Yeah.
But I like to compare chapter 17, that's a Three Houses map. Chapter 11, that's a Thracia map. Chapter 15, that's a Fates map.
I never thought of it like that. Maybe they did it. Maybe they did go back to older games for inspiration at least. That's a clever point. I never thought of that.
Yeah, it was just I might be making it up in my head, but that's just like my gut feeling with how the things were designed.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll give another interview where they'll go into that. I mean, it'd be easy for them to say in hindsight, like, yeah, that's totally what we did. But yeah, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt there and say they might have just pulled some inspiration from older games. Maybe not specifically the connections that we're seeing, but
yeah,
the map design in this game is so much better than Three Houses that at the very least they did something where they look back and say, okay, what makes gameplay work, even though we're giving the player all these emblems.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and another comparison, I think it's 21. The Open Coliseum, that's an Awakening map, okay? 100%.
The Open Coliseum? Wait, is that
like it's like the one where there's a group of generals right in front of you, and then they spawn from the sides, and I think it's Zephyr and Gris at the top. I can't remember.
Oh, do you fight Vale as well?
I think Vale's there, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the chapter before you lose the rings again, right?
Yeah, that's an Awakening map, okay?
Yeah, it's
like
I can
no
see that.
cover.
It's a late game Awakening map for sure. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
But we were also I was making fun of Sigurd, by the way, because it feels like that's his only character aspect. It's like, I know the pain of leaving a child behind.
Yeah.
Like he says it like every other cutscene he says. I wasn't trying to praise him, but it felt like he took it that way.
I mean, I only, when you said it, I only thought of the one scene where he did it, and I didn't think of the others. I guess I blended them.
I feel like
mind.
there's like 4 Bond ring supports where he says that.
Oh, okay.
But it's hard, you know. There's so many characters, it's hard to make it varied. I'm not blaming it for that. I just found it funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you only have so much to work with, especially when it's an older game, and the characters, even in older games, don't have too much to say about themselves. So
yeah,
I don't blame them super hard. I really can't fault the Bond combos for anything in this game because they voiced them all, they wrote them all for like, what is it, like this game is like 20 something characters, 30 something characters that all have to bond with 12
like,
emblems.
Let's say it's 40 characters and then 12 emblems and DLC. So yeah, it was a Herculean task, and I think like obviously not as well fleshed out as the supports, but I appreciate it. I think it's interesting to see the characters interact with the old lords, even if it's a 1 to 2 sentence conversation. Yeah,
and just it's one sentence, 2 sentences, but they still make it work.
Yeah,
I don't know. I really can't criticize that too much. And sometimes a limitation like that is what makes it work best, because we've talked a little bit about how the game's script sometimes feels like it just kind of goes on and on, especially with the Lumera death scene. So sometimes it's nice to be forced for them to be short and just get to the point of everything, and it works really well to just bring out what they want to bring out and leave all the fluff aside. It works really well. Especially for someone like, you know, Gold Mary, who just wants to get her dumbass lines out there.
I love her. No, don't talk smack about her. She's so great. But yeah, in terms of length, I think Echoes with their supports, like that's the sweet spot. I think Echoes did supports the best for me, where it's like Three Houses supports were too lengthy sometimes. Where if I did it, it's like, okay, like I guess I got to do a support now. Like, don't get me wrong, the content's great, but the length of it is what my issue was. Echoes kind of shined on the characters and did it in like a snappy way. I like the length of supports and engage. I think it should stick to this length. It's just the content of it is what needs work. Yeah, I remember the C supports in particular were pretty short, and I was like, oh, this is what we're going for the rest of the game. I'm happy with that. And the B and A were a little longer, but still fine. Yeah. It's just, it has some of the same problems as Three Houses, right? Where you'll get a bunch of them at once, or it's just only certain characters build it up as easily as others. But overall, I'd say, yeah, we're definitely improving on the support end for sure. That's a good point, actually. I like that. Yeah, and another complaint about Alir, like just the style of a insert avatar here. Like, Alir obviously has to support with every character, right? Yes. Obviously. But if you notice, not like the support list is kind of like a GBA game, where it's very limited actually for the other characters, like with who they have interactions with. So I like that. I think it makes the characters more interesting than just like Awakening and Fates, where everybody can mingle with everybody. It just makes everything less memorable because they end up droning the same points over and over. Yeah, especially with consistency supports. Yeah, especially with those. But I hope they move away from an insert, because like Alir's, I hate having to listen to my avatar talk to these characters. It's way more interesting for me to hear 2 other characters talking, just to understand both of them, because Alir's kind of like a blank slate, right? Basically. So when they have
He has no memory. Yeah.
120 supports for a Leer, like I had the same thing with 3 warriors, 3 hopes. Like I hated having to do so many Shez supports.
Uh-huh.
But I just think if they move away from that, it'll improve the whole thing even more.
Yeah, and the problem is magnified because they get support points through activities the easiest, so they're going to build up more, so you're going to see more of those C supports with them doing the same thing over and over and over.
The reason I bring it up is you were complaining that, like, oh, I have so many supports to do. It's a Lear's fault. Like, that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think one last point, because we're, like, crossing the 1 hour mark. I will say, though, when it comes to supporting the avatar, I'm not a shipper kind of person who really cares about who marries who. But I will say that the S-rank art of this game is so phenomenally, so much better than, honestly, anything I've ever seen. Have you seen some of the S-rank art in this game? I only saw ATAs. And
I married Gold Mary, so I liked her art. Yeah, I think I saw a zip file with a bunch of them before the game came out. I think they're pretty good, yeah. Like I wish the art style kind of looked like that instead of like I like the art style in the game overall. I think that it looks so good in motion, but when you freeze it, that's when it starts to look less good. So like the illustrations were good.
Yeah, definitely. Art good at the very least. So see, we can praise good things about this game. Trust.
No, I love this game. This is a top 5 game for me.
Same.
Like
same. Obviously, like things that you want to criticize, you have to do it very properly, come with arguments and stuff. Whereas this is what I'm getting at here is there's not much to say about the art besides art is good. And then I mean, what else are you gonna say? Like I wish they slightly changed the coloring on that ATA art. You know, like there's not much else to say there, right? Whereas
the thing I want to say is I wish they used more illustrations instead of 3D models for things.
Oh, I'm so glad you said it exactly like that because I just remembered they also have the CGs of like the castles and stuff where you get to a new location. Those are also really good, and like they're still images, but they're like photos almost. They're like it looks like they painted it on something, or like they just took a picture of a real castle. It's so good. It's
amazing, and like I don't know if the art book that came with the Divine Edition, if you were lucky enough to get that, it's awesome looking at that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's again missed potential. I know they did it because it saves time and money, but
yeah, I don't expect them to do much more with like super high quality art than what they did in this game. Like I just kind of wish that the generic scenes maybe looked a little bit better, but it was still an improvement. So I'm not gonna like be super harsh on that. Just the Koei Tecmo style presentation just kind of weirds me sometimes, but the artwork that is in this game, some of it is just amazing. It's kind of just the point I wanted to make. Definitely hope they keep that in. I really miss the CGs in some other games.
Yes, agreed. And this game looks awesome. I'm just gonna say. I mean, I'm used to the anime aesthetic, so it's not like that much of a shock for me. But like, man, it's just like visually, it looks so much better than Three Houses.
For sure.
As a Switch game, it's easy to make the comparison on Switch. Like when you look out on the map, it feels like it's hard to see the difference between Engage and Three Houses for me, just visually from the map standpoint. But once you zoom in, you're like, whoa, like this is night and day with how it looks.
Oh yeah, for sure. No Warriors mode probably helps a lot with that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Oh, what a feature.
That was definitely one of the features that was in the game of all time. For sure. Anyway, I think that is a good closing point because we've gone over pretty much everything, and we've done a little bit over an hour, which is a good length. Thank you everyone for watching the third most engaging podcast ever, and Speedy, thank you for joining. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I hope it was a fun time listening as background noise because that's probably what you're going to do with this thing.
Yes.
And that you achieved whatever task you were doing while listening to this.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed doing your laundry, whatever it was.
Yeah. But thanks Becca. Really appreciate the combo. Thanks for having me on.
See you around. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.